Hello and welcome to a session of data interpretation. In this session, we shall discuss more about bar graphs. Now, what are bar graphs? Let's have a look at one of them. Now here, if you see, there are 3 bars in each cluster and there are 7 such clusters. Now, what exactly they are? Let's have a look at the directions. In the following figure gives the details of profit, revenue and expenditure of a firm from 1989 to 1995. Now each cluster represents a year. So the first cluster is 1989 where there is profit, then revenue and then expenditure. So 7 such clusters, which means 7 different years. So this bar graph has representation of 7 years across 3 different data points. Now let's look at the questions. Which year showed the greatest percentage increase in profit as compared to the previous year? Now what is percentage increase? Percentage increase is nothing but the final value minus the initial value divided by the initial value. So the difference divided by the base. Now here if we see, if we move from left to right or from 1989 to 1995, we will see very clearly that the base goes on increasing. So however, if the difference remains the same, the base goes on increasing, so the percentage will reduce. Let's take an example. If the difference is always 2, so in the first case it will be 2 upon 10, which is 20%. Then it will be 2 upon 12 because the increase is 2. So 2 upon 12, which is less than 20%, or rather somewhere close to what? 16.66%. In the third case, 2 upon 14, which will be what? 14.28%. Then it will be 2 upon 16, which will be 12.5%. So even if the difference is same, the base increases, so the percentage increase reduces. Now let's try applying the same in this case. So for 1989, it is somewhere close to 20, then it goes to 25, then it goes to 30, and then 35, and then it is 50. Then it becomes 70, and then 75. So if you see 35 to 50, the jump is 15. Now 15 on a base of 35 is somewhere close to 40, but slightly more than 40. 40 will be what? 49 upon 35 will give us 40. 50 upon 35 will give us somewhere close to 43%. In the next case, 70 upon 50 will give us what? 70 upon 50, 20 upon 50, which is 40%. So the previous increase from 35 to 50 is more than 40%. So that is the right answer. So 1992 will give us the biggest jump compared to any other year. Let's have a look at another question. The average revenue collected in the given 7 years is approximately. Now we have to look at all these 7 years and revenue. In this case, revenue has to be or is the highest across. So we can clearly identify the tallest pillar in all the clusters. So in the first case, it is close to 120, then it is 130, then it is 145, then it is 170, then it slightly rises to 180, then it is equal to 200, which is there. Then there is 225 because it is exactly or somewhere in the exact middle of 200 and 250. So this is the total of 7 years. If I divide it by 7, we get an answer which is 168. So 168 lakh is the right option here. Let's take another question. In which year was the growth in expenditure greatest as compared to the previous year? We've already compared profit, then we compared revenue, now it is the turn of expenditure. Let's start estimating. The first case, close to 105, then it is 110, then it is 120, then it jumps to 135ish, then it is 140, then it is 45, and then it's 150. Otherwise also, if I look, the biggest jump is from 91 to 92. So the growth was maximum in 92. So we can clearly say that 92 was the year in which the growth was maximum. Let's have a look at the next question. The expenditures for the 7 years together form what percent of the revenues during the same period? 7 years together to the total revenue of the 7 years. We just calculated the total revenue or the average revenue, but let's do it again. So total revenue is what? 1170 and total expenditure comes to 890. So 890 upon 1170 approximately is close to 75%. Let's have a look at the next question. If the profit in 1996 shows the same annual growth rate as it had shown in 1995 over the previous year, then what will be the profit in 1996? Now here we are trying to forecast the next year. It is beyond the graph which is shown, but yes, we have to follow the same trend as the graph. So from 94 to 95, what was the growth? So let's see, it was 75 in 95 and 70 in 94. So the growth was what? 5 out of 70, which is somewhere close to 7.14%. If I follow the same growth, or say let's take it this way, 75 upon 70 should be equal to x upon 75. So that will give me what? Approximately similar amount of growth, because the base is not changing by much. So a jump of 5 on a base of 70 will give us what? A jump of slightly more than 5 on a base of 75. So I can say it will be slightly more than 80 lakhs. Let's have a look at the fresh new question. Now here we look at a graph. It's slightly tricky or slightly different per se. Let's read it carefully. In the following graph, figure A shows the tobacco production and figure B shows the tobacco export of leading tobacco producing countries. Study well and answer the questions that follow. So the first graph, tobacco production in leading tobacco producing countries. So there are how many countries? 6 countries: China, India, Brazil, US, Zimbabwe and Turkey. And for the same 6 countries, there is the tobacco export, which is given in the second table or second figure. There is some note. The population of China is given, India, Brazil, US. Okay, so you have the population of all these 6 countries. Then there is a note. The tobacco which is not consumed in the country is exported to the countries where tobacco is not produced. So we can very clearly say there is no wastage. If there is a production, there is either consumption or export, and export to countries which do not produce. Export ratio is defined as the ratio of tobacco exported to the tobacco produced. So export ratio is nothing but export upon production. Last, there are only 6 countries which are producing and exporting tobacco. Now 6 countries which are producing and exporting tobacco. So there is no 7th country which is producing and exporting. So they might, I don't know, but here it is very clear. Let's look at the question now. For which country is the per capita consumption of tobacco the maximum? Per capita consumption of tobacco the maximum. What is per capita consumption? Say total consumption of a country divided by the total population is called the per capita consumption. So first of all, we'll have to see what is the consumption. Here we have production and we have exports. So we'll have to find out first of all consumption. Let's write them down. China. So from the difference of the two, we can say that in China it is 2.05 million, whatever is the figure. I think it is metric tons. So 2.05 million metric tons. Let's not write a 6-digit number, it will become too complicated. So simplifying it, 2.05 for China. For US it is 0.226 million. For India it is 0.476 million. For Zimbabwe it is 0.013 million. For Brazil it is 0.143, and for Turkey it is 0.078 million. Now this is the consumption. What is the per capita consumption? So let's start from Turkey. Now Turkey 0.078 is to 1.2. So if I calculate, it will be 0.065 million or 0.065, whatever. 0.065. Now Zimbabwe is slightly less than Turkey in terms of the population, but the consumption is much lesser, so that will not be close to Turkey. Now for US, the population of US is what, 12 times that of Turkey, but the consumption is hardly 3 times that of Turkey, or not even 3 times. So their per capita consumption will be much lesser. This is another way of comparing. Let's look at Brazil. Now the consumption is twice that of Turkey on an overall basis, but the population is 10 times. So again, the consumption, per capita consumption will not match. India, so India, the consumption is actually maybe somewhere close to 6 times or 7 times, but the population is way beyond. So again, it will not compare. China, population is 100 times, but the consumption is what? Somewhere close to 25 times. So that again will not compare. So Turkey happens to be the right option with the highest per capita consumption. Let's have a look at the next question. For which country is the export ratio the maximum? Now let's have a look closely. In China, the difference between production and export is much higher. So export is much lesser. In India, again it is there. But studying closely, we can say that in case of Zimbabwe, there is hardly any difference between production and exports. So the ratio of export to the production will be maximum in Zimbabwe, which can be very obviously seen from the graph. So we don't need to go down and calculate it. Let's have a look at the next one. China's tobacco production is how many times that of Turkey? Now China's production is what? 2.16 million, and Turkey is what? 0.178 million. So I can say that 2.16 divided by 0.178. This is close to 12 times. So this is 12 times that of Turkey. You got the answer. China's tobacco production is 12 times that of Turkey. Let's have a look at the next question. By what percentage is India's tobacco production more than that of Brazil? Now India's tobacco production 599, Brazil is 493. So if I very clearly say 493, if I say it is what? 120%, but it is not 120% more. It is only 20% more. Hence we can say that the production of India is 20% more than Brazil. Let's look at the next question. What percentage of the world's total production of tobacco is exported from the tobacco producing countries? Now here, let's go back to the notes. There are only 6 countries which produce and export tobacco. So there is no question of data insufficient. We have 6 countries and these are the 6 countries which are there. So let's start doing it. What percentage of the world's total production of tobacco exported from the tobacco producing countries? Let's see the total production first. So China 2.161, then 0.599, then 0.493, then 0.408, then it is 0.209 and 0.179. We are simplifying the data which is there. Adding up, okay, let's forget the last digit. We can clearly get what? 4.04 out of this. Now let's look at the export figures. In that order, because country does not matter here. So it's 0.35, 0.196, 0.182, 0.123, 0.114 and 0.101. So this totals up to what? 1.06. So 1.06 on a base of 4.04. I can say 1.01 will be what? Exactly 25%. So 0.05 will be 1% more. So this answer will be what? 26%. Now 26% is the right answer here. Now this is how, by using different methods of approximation and other techniques, we can solve bar graph questions. The key here is to estimate the right value. Try observing and solving a lot of questions in order to sharpen your skills of observation. All the best.